Hi, I'm Jeff Ranke, Editorial Director of Manufacturing.net and Manufacturing Business Technology. Welcome to Security Breach. One of the inescapable truths about the industrial sector is that it is usually the ultimate proving ground for product performance. When we look at some of the technologies that have created seismic social shifts, tools like operational software, wireless connectivity, and numerous monitoring devices, we're not ready for the demanding industrial environment right away. Rather, it took time to enhance and upgrade these platforms so they could handle the requirements of the industrial environment. And when it comes to cybersecurity, that dynamic has really done a 180. Hackers initially went after healthcare and financial institutions, as well as individuals, because they were seen as easy targets with deep pockets that would pay to have the problem go away as quickly as possible. Then 2020 came and put many industries on pause, except for manufacturing. And like moths to a flame, the hackers were drawn to OT networks and found not only a vulnerable target, but a lucrative one. In this instance, industrial organizations were no longer the standard bearer for performance and reliability. That position belonged to a collective with a long history of information and network security, the military and defense sector. In the US and around the world, especially Israel, the strategies, techniques, and tools utilized by these organizations are making their way into the OT environment via individuals and organizations with a strategic military background. An example of such organizations is MXD, which is recognized by the Department of Defense as the National Center for Cybersecurity and Manufacturing. The company partners with manufacturers to strengthen the resiliency of their assets and critical infrastructure by providing the digital tools and expertise needed to defend an expanding and highly targeted attack surface. We're thrilled to welcome Sam Moyer, MXD's lead cybersecurity engineer, to the show to discuss some of these tools and strategies. Thanks for the time, Sam, and welcome to Security Breach. You know, Sam, one of the things I wanted to kind of kick off the conversation with is, with MXD being kind of a unique position, working with defense contractors, working with global supply chain type clientele, you might be in a really unique position to talk about one of these emerging trends we're seeing in industrial cybersecurity, where a lot of these state-sponsored groups maybe start doing something that have political intentions or motivations behind them. But as a result, in getting into things like water treatment plants and other things of that nature, they're learning new exploits into the ICS, which is expanding throughout the industrial sector. Have you seen these sort of being, I don't know, for lack of a better term, happy accidents for the hackers, or is this something that's kind of been part of their plan all the way along?
So I like this question, Jeff. I think it kind of to work backwards through that question. I think we kind of want to lay out the different types of attackers. So you had mentioned, nation state attackers. I wanted to also just kind of point out, the criminal organizations that are also present and at the disposal of some of those nation states. It's also, you mentioned too, the political motivation. I think what we see is not, maybe there's a little bit of that happy accident going on, but I actually think it's more of a kind of a trickle down. Just in the way that nation state actors work, they're going to look for vulnerabilities, they're going to do their reconnaissance, and then they're going to hold those vulnerabilities. They're not just going to instantly exploit them. It's very valuable for them to have the tools available when they're needed. So it's important to them to kind of have, again, at the ready. So I think just politically, with what we've been seeing, on a global scale right now, with what's been going on for the last couple of years in Ukraine, what we're seeing now in the Middle East, again, we're starting to see those nation states exercise those exploits that they've been sitting. And so again, not a happy accident. It's more of just now that vulnerability is out in the wild. Now it's actually known. So we're actually just seeing kind of the repercussions of that, where those threat actors now have that vulnerability in their back pocket as well.
So does that approach stem from the fact that they're basically just gathering intel so that they can make the most of the exploit once they want to put it into action? Or is it more of we're going to hit quick and hard and not, give them enough time to really respond and react the way we'd want them to?
So again, I think it depends again on the actual actor here and making that delineation between like the nation state and cyber criminal. Nation state, again, they've got political targets, they've got economic targets, they've got military targets, and for them, kind of the piece they want to do is that advanced persistent threat. They want to stay and maintain their hold inside. It may be to exfil data. It may be to shut down operations. But then you move over to the criminal side, and it's the lucrative aspect of it. It's how much, where's the money? Follow the money, I guess, would be the best way to put it. Okay. So yeah.
Okay. I know you guys work with a lot of defense contractors, specifically defense manufacturers, and we're seeing those folks probably having the more advanced approaches and strategies for cybersecurity built into their enterprise. And you're working with companies to sort of, as you mentioned before, trickle down to other areas within manufacturing. Could you maybe talk about some of the things that you're learning at some of these other manufacturers that are then kind of trickling down and helping everybody out across the broader industry?
Yeah, I think, so again, as we're seeing kind of that trickle down, I think a lot of the, like you're saying, with the working with the defense industrial base supply chain, a lot of the big prime contracts, they know what they're doing. They've won and been exercising contracts in the classified space. They know how to secure a network. They know how to secure operations. But it's the subcontracts that we really focus on at MXD. So we're there, also to partner with those primes, where it's helping their supply chains and the pieces that they can't control or the pieces that they aren't going to own wholly themselves, with actually securing their operations and their network. So I think what we're kind of seeing is, there's a gap, definitely. Like you said, they're already pretty mature in their cybersecurity. A lot of the smaller small and medium-sized manufacturers, they don't have as robust, if at all, cybersecurity posture, and so that's one of the things that here again at MXD we're trying to alleviate, we're trying to mitigate, we're trying to be a solution provider and help. We identify that gap even exists, and then we can help that supply chain, with their requirements, meet either that governance, meet those framework requirements, just meet that, just in general cybersecurity hygiene that those companies need to have.
Yeah. Is there typically, I know every organization is different. They're going to have different needs, different demands, all of that. But are you seeing some reoccurring themes when it comes to some of that low-hanging fruit that maybe some of these organizations a little bit further down the food chain just aren't getting to, that you're helping them with the most to kick things off?
Yeah, so I think so a lot of it, there's when you get into just basic cybersecurity, a lot of it is understanding what you have. You can't protect what you don't know. And so a lot of it is just working with, asset management, and not just understanding, the pieces of equipment they have either on their OT network or in their IT network. But it's also, understanding how those correlate, but also understanding, software levels of everything that's on those assets. So they may be doing a good job of understanding all of the assets they have, that they know they have, this manufacturing run or this cell has these devices, but we're seeing that they're not really tracking on that more, on the software level, on the patching level, what it's actually supporting, and that's something that needs to be is one of those things that also needs to be tracked.
In looking and sort of comparing and contrasting a little bit, when we look at the defense sector and some of the other manufacturing areas that you work in, how are they handling the whole IT-OT dynamic? Because with a lot of traditional manufacturers, it's tough. You've learned those things from IT security and you want to cut and paste them over. We know that doesn't work great. Are you seeing some things in terms of either getting out of the siloed approach from some of those defense folks that is trickling over in terms of lessons learned that we can apply to the broader industrial sector?
So I'd love to say yes, I do. But I think that air gap, siloing is still, again, you're putting a lot of risk when you connect things like that. And so I think the way around now is we try to become more competitive with manufacturing. We try to add digitization to it, and we can pull metrics, we can pull data off those things and better learn how we can more efficiently, produce. That comes with that big risk of, well, now it's connected, and so how do I secure it that way? And so we're just kind of, I think what we're looking at now is not so much a just direct connect, but finding those either middle pieces
Yeah.
to play, man in the middle, and to pass along only the information that needs to be going one side. And in a traditional IT network, a firewall or just some middle piece of equipment. That's where I've seen the most in manufacturing now. Is that's how we're going to connect forward. I guess it's a lesson learned. It's just I look at manufacturing as it's not behind. It's in its own time.
It's a great way of putting it. Absolutely. Is that, when we look at a lot of these digital transformation strategies that manufacturers are looking to implement from a cybersecurity perspective, are you seeing one area that, boy, you can hammer them as much as you want to, if they're just really resistant potentially to one particular strategy or approach that could potentially have a bigger impact if they could see it through and implement it?
Yeah, I think that I've been lucky enough to actually go out and meet a couple different manufacturers where MXD is headquartered in Chicago, and I don't even know that there's actually just more of a resistance to even digitize. It's not even, and it may be because they're thinking down the rabbit hole of, I also have to secure it, and my operations are fine as they are. But I think that yeah, there's more reluctance to digitize, and I think some of that is in part due, when you look at, again, businesses being different, like we've discussed. Manufacturing hasn't really had that disruptor that a lot of other industries have. So there isn't, while we want to push towards that, it's because we're saying to push, and it's not organic. There isn't that disruptive competitor coming through and saying, well, I'm going to build this that much better or that much quicker than you. And when you don't have that organically, it's tough to push them into, hey, we could do this better. I know a lot of them are also, and it's another thing that we actually work here at MXD through our Learn program, is the skills gap. I know that, again, I've talked to a couple manufacturers here, and they're just still on I need people working my second and third shifts. I can't even fill those roles. And if I can't fill that, I'm not thinking about digitization. I'm not thinking about cybersecurity.
Do you think in the past that's always been sort of an issue with smaller manufacturers? They don't see themselves as, like you said, maybe having the competitive impetus to push them forward. As a result, a lot of these smaller manufacturers are also really not as attuned to the cybersecurity environment as they could be or should be. Do you see that size element still playing a big role in people's and companies' decisions to digitize or implement cyber?
I mean, I think, like I said, I think it makes them resistant. I think that it's dying down. That kind of that we're because of our size, we're not a target, or we're not that important. Kind of to dispel that, it's again, with those political motivations, with prime contractors being targeted because supply chains are so targeted. I'll bring it up as kind of that, you're guilty by association. So you're a target because of who you work with. And it may not be that because, you're only 10 people working and supplying this. It's not that. And it's not just that they're going to target you because they want to shut you down. No, they could be targeting you because you're a way into that bigger target.
Yeah, absolutely. Are there any either groups or tactics or strategies that you're seeing the hacker community really implement or really try to put more energy into lately? Anything kind of lighting up your radar right now in terms of a new group or new approach to what they're doing?
Not really. I think it's all still kind of it's the old tried and true. It's, again, manufacturing not being behind, but in its own time. We're seeing the things that we've seen for years in IT are making their way into the supply chain.
We've been talking a little bit about MDX and some of the things you guys do. Maybe you could offer us a little more insight or detail about the company and who you work with.
Absolutely. So So I work for Manufacturing Times Digital, or better known as MXD. So we've actually, we're a public-private partnership founded in 2024. Uh, uh, Again, we're a public-facing arm and not fully funded, but a lot of our funding does come through the DoD. And we actually just hit, again, like we said, we founded in 2014, so we actually just hit our 10-year. And with that, we've had 10 years to kind of look back and at all of, what we've accomplished and kind of, either streamline or fine tune the things that we're doing. So I'm excited to. I joined the company almost 2 years ago now, and it's been an exciting place to work. It's been a very neat opportunity. I was prior military myself, so to come and go from that side to the public sector, but still be able to work so closely with a lot of what I've already known has been unique. And then coming up in June, I'm excited for we're co-hosting with the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. They're going to bring in Idaho National Labs to do industrial control security training for a week at our facility. So that's just a few of the ways that we again can be that convener. We can bring either the government or large prime contractors that have these unique problems, and we can find and vet these solution providers.
You said MXD has been around for about a decade, around 10 years. Obviously, industrial cybersecurity concerns go way before that, but to me, it really feels like 2020 was a real turning point in terms of opening people's eyes within the industrial community as to how important cybersecurity is. In your experience, Sam, have you seen sort of that benchmark point or event? Was it SolarWinds or Colonial Pipeline or any of the things going on now that you think has really been a turning point in terms of people waking up and wanting to pay more attention to these issues?
Yeah, I think things like Colonial Pipeline. I think that was definitely a big push into why this is important. I think another global the COVID-19, the global pandemic. I think that really showcased how imperative supply chains, how important logistics are, how quickly we can be cut off from just and that wasn't even a cyber attack. That's just real world. We're making the decision to shut it down, and how quickly it starts to degrade. Or a lot of our economy is built on that just-in-time logistics. That when we start to purposefully shut it down, we don't maybe think of those third, fourth order effects of nobody move. Oh, now there's a toilet paper shortage. So I do think that has kind of brought its way over to cybersecurity, though, and that if we can tell ourselves to shut down and this is what it does, what happens when somebody else shuts us down? What do we need to do to get us right back going the way we need to be, so we don't have another toilet paper shortage?
Yeah, exactly. And talking a little bit more about that response, one of the biggest topics, and I'm sure you deal with it more than you'd ever want to, is obviously ransomware. It's been a huge, huge issue in the industrial sector. Colonial Pipeline was a ransomware attack. We've heard some other ones from Clorox and Dole Foods and some other people as well. One of the things that's really drawn my attention is the fact that we see statistics indicating that manufacturers are paying very frequently, much more frequently even than in the past. What is your feeling there? We understand we want to get things up and running there, but why do you think manufacturers have become so quick to make that payment? Is it just to get up and running? Is it because the attack itself is too complex, or are there other factors at play here?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because so right now we're actually quarter one 2024 is actually the lowest on record of ransomware payments. So it's interesting to see that manufacturing, on the other hand, is probably driving a lot of those payments. Yeah. I think it could be a lot of things. Again, we talk about them, manufacturing not having as robust cybersecurity approach. So it could be, just a lack of consultation. And again, that need to just get right back to running. Um, it could be, again, if they're not insured and they're not working with an insurance provider and, asking those questions, oh, I got a ransom payment, should I pay it? They might say no. Or if they don't have a cybersecurity professional on staff, or consult with a third party, that remediates these types of issues. They might not have that guidance to not make the payment. They might not understand that we have sanctions against that country, and making a payment is illegal.
Yeah.
So it could be that it's ignorance on that part. Or again, it could just simply be get that again. Hey, if I'm not producing, I'm not profiting. If I'm not profiting, I'm closed.
Yeah.
So this is better than closed.
Fair enough. One of the things that I've always argued too that is really proliferating a lot of the ransomware elements is we need greater transparency when it comes to these attacks, whether it's reporting them, sharing information in terms of what happened, why they either had to pay or they were able to work around it. What are your thoughts there specific to the industrial sector? Are we transparent enough? Are we sharing enough information? Are the systems in place good? Do they need to get better? Maybe where could they get better, I guess?
I think we're moving in the right direction. I think, and we've seen it in other industries now, with the SEC implementing reporting requirements. Again, I think it's going to make its way to manufacturing. It's going to make its way to industry. And we're already starting to see that in kind of the governance side. We're working through, the CMMC for, federal contractors, where, and even in DFARS already, there are reporting requirements if you've had a breach, if you've had a known security incident. So those already exist. I think we could do a better job of educating small and medium manufacturers of their requirement. It might just be that we haven't been holding them to it. Or it could also just be, I don't know which avenue to even go. And so maybe providing, a more streamlined resource for them to report that stuff. And also maybe even just to demystify that reporting isn't necessarily going to be bad. We're all going to get better together. But the only way we're going to do that is if we can, aggregate some of that data around how are these things happening.
No, I'd agree. I think that's well said. Do you think, is this something industry can do itself? Do we need more government accountability or enforcement? What would be your take there?
That's a tough one for sure. Because like I said, we're working both sides of it. We want to make manufacturers more competitive in the U.S. We want to, empower them. We want to make it easier. We want to help them digitize. And then we also have to think about the security side. And then with that comes, like I've already mentioned, the CMMC program. Working through how do we take some, frameworks that have already been working within the federal government? How do we make them apply to non-federal entities? And that's difficult because we want to grow the industrial base, but regulations rarely grow things. They usually end up shrinking them, or at least in the short term. So, like I said, we're in a growing pain period, I would say, right now. A lot of the frameworks and stuff that we want or for regulation are still in their infancy. We're still working through how the best approach is to even implement that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think that is a universal thought right there in terms of trying to figure out the best way to do it right now. One of the things I have to ask about, and you mentioned it a little bit before as well, is artificial intelligence. When we look at the role that it can play in cyber, we know the bad guys are using it. We know the good guys can figure out some ways to use it as well. Do you have a feel in terms of who do you think is using it better, or what is maybe the overall bigger impact of artificial intelligence when it comes to industrial cybersecurity?
Yeah, earlier today I just saw a little web comic and it got me laughing because it was just hey Frank, take the sales pitch and remove just Control F and remove crypto and replace it with AI. So there is a lot of buzz just around AI, and everything's AI right now, or machine learning. But to get back to your question, I think I couldn't tell you who's using it better. I think that it's important to understand that just a lot of the cybersecurity tools we have, I mean, they've been using, what we think of as AI, and I think it's become mainstream because of generative AI. But I mean, AI has been in use in the background in SIEM tools for years. It's great at parsing data and being able to, aggregate and elevate just the things you really want to know about. But I do see that our tools will continue to get better. I think one of the areas where AI, especially generative AI, is going to help is going to be, in those, okay, I need to create an incident response plan. Well, we can, pretty quickly have generative AI spit out an incident response plan, and we're 80% done because all of the verbiage is there. But on the same time, too, I think, again, AI, one of the big problems, and this is one of the things I think we're going to see in the future, is there's just going to be, it's going to be way more advanced phishing. There's going to be, it's not just going to be a poorly worded email anymore with a, a link to make a payment or, that regard. It's going to be very sophisticated. It will have, gleaned your company's website. It will know who your bosses are. It will, it'll know, it'll be able to know all of that background information to compose and build. And so it does kind of bring up the, I think a lot of, again, we can go back to the conversation about, different types of attackers in nation state and advanced cyber criminals. I think you'll probably start seeing a lot more, threats as a service. There'll just be more of that. I'm going to buy the tool, or I'm just going to, here's this quick, easy AI that can go and put that phishing campaign all together for me. And then it's just opportunistic, and you cast it out there and wait for somebody to bite. Again, I think our tools are going to get better at finding that. Maybe we won't be looking for those poorly worded emails. We'll be looking for emails that are written too good. But that might be the case we're going down.
Yeah, I mean, AI has almost become like a phishing Grammarly for hackers. They can clean everything up by running it through there. And, you bring up an interesting point about AI sort of allowing more people to do this, but at the same time, I mean, I'm kind of half kidding here, but you could almost see AI putting a lot of social engineering researchers out of work with the fact that it can do a lot of this stuff itself in terms of finding all that info. So it's kind of an interesting deal. This has been really great, Sam. When you look down the road a little bit, any big trends you're seeing that we should be aware of over the next, let's go short term, year and a half, something like that?
Yeah, I think, using AI, we're going to see a lot more, a lot more clickable phishing emails. We're going to see a lot more of that human factor. It's going to be coming into play. We've already seen it with the the MGM hack. That was all social engineering and getting access to a developer's laptop, and that's all you need. I do think that we're going to see again, that AI is not going away. We're going to see that tool set being used a lot more. I think another thing we're going to have to be aware of too is just as we talked about, AI being used by threat actors, but also being used on the good side to secure and help protect. I think there's a limit to that, because the more and more we use AI to automate, the less the human factor remembers that they still have to be aware, and they still need to be, looking out for these things, and indicators in email. You'll start to trust your systems too much, or again, like I said, you could, generative AI, you could have it spit out a pretty decent incident response plan and be 80% of the way there, but you're losing that, the human knowledge of understanding and why it's important to understand that plan. And so you could apply that across any of the governance documents or any of the just cybersecurity paperwork that needs to get done. Yeah, generative AI can help us streamline that, but we do have to make sure that we're still bringing it back and making sure that the humans involved are still thought of. The humans involved are still trained and aware, and that they still have a very big part to play.
Absolutely. No, can't overlook the people part of it. So, Sam, last question I got for you here, and I always like to ask this, especially of those who are involved in the the defense side of things, who have military experience, because being in the Army for a little bit, we know all the bad stuff that can happen and trying to be prepared for it. So, when you put your head on the pillow tonight, even with all this knowledge that you have in terms of how vulnerable a lot of these super important and critical systems are, what gives you some reassurance? What helps you sleep at night a little bit right now?
I think it's just you take it one day at a time, like anything. I think all it's an ebb and flow. We go back and forth on threat actors finding something, taking it down. We build it back up. I think just manufacturing and then the U.S. in general, we're very resilient. When we're brought with a problem, we'll figure it out. We all got through COVID together. We all have weathered lots. So I don't know, maybe I'm just optimistic and hopeful, but that's what helps me sleep at night. There's problems everywhere, but it's best to just look at them as something that needs to be solved than worrying.
Thanks, Sam. And for more information on the work Sam and his colleagues are up to, you can check them out at mxdusa.org. I'd like to thank you for joining us today. To catch up on past episodes, you can go to manufacturing.net, IEN.com, or mbtmag.com. You can also check Security Breach out wherever you get your podcasts, including Apple, Amazon, and Overcast. And if you have a cybersecurity story or topic that you'd like to have us explore on Security Breach, you can reach me at jeff@ien.com. For Sam Moyer, I'm Jeff Ranke, and this is Security Breach.